Hello there, welcome to this Shieldier guide on how to effectively recon the damn vulnerable web application within the Tartarus lab. If you do not have the Tartarus lab, don't worry. However, only the red team perspective information will apply to you today. If you have the Tartarus lab, then you'll be able to do the blue team perspective and the purple team perspective as well. But if not, no worries. It'll give you a good indication of how the blue team will be able to pick up this activity that we're going to undertake today. So you're going to want to go to the blog, shieldier.co, and then it will be the damn vulnerable web application recon low security red and blue team perspectives. I've joined these two together because I want to keep each post about 5,000 words. It's only the red and blue purple team perspective takes up another post, which I'll be demonstrating at another time. What you're going to need is the prerequisites if you're going to be following along with the Tartarus lab. It'll be the red team setup or the blue team setup. If you only want to hack the damn vulnerable web app, red team's perfectly fine. If you want to run the seam and look and investigate the activity, you have to use the blue team perspective. Once you have them downloaded and installed and your host meets the minimum system requirements, all good. For ease of use throughout the rest of this guide, if you're not using the Tartarus lab, you will have to add the target IP address to your host's host file. So if you're using, let's say, the attack box in TryHackMe or whatever, you'll need to add the specific domain name to the etc host file so that the rest of the commands will all make sense for you, so you don't have to then dynamically change, oh no, it's actually this IP address, oh no, it's actually that IP address. This will be the easiest way to do it so that you'd only be attacking the domain name in this instance. Once you first log into the damn vulnerable web app, you'll be presented with a create the database screen. So I'm going to switch to the Kali instance now and then have a look. We will open a browser and then, well, browse to the destination. So .home.arpa. Cool. So we don't, I just want to make sure I don't need to create the database. Cool. Like this. You'll create the database just by clicking create/reset. And then you'll be prompted to log in again. So happy days. We can go back to the blog post. What I first want to make clear is that there are active reconnaissance and passive reconnaissance within an engagement. Everything I'm going to show you today is active recon. We're going to be reaching out to the target and actively leaving a trail on the target from our activity. If, however, this were a more realistic engagement, you will do as much of that passively as you can. So through techniques like Google Dorking, through open source intelligence, OSINT, through Google Maps, you want to see where their headquarters is, all of that, you want to do it as passively as possible. You don't want to actually engage and reach out to the target until you absolutely have to. Because, as we will demonstrate in the blue team perspective, there you will be leaving a fingerprint, and depending on how you do this, it could be quite a large fingerprint, and then all you're doing is letting the defenders know, hey, someone's going to come knocking. So you don't really want to do that. So the first tool we're going to be demonstrating today is Nmap. So I'm just going to copy the command so long. Nmap is the industry standard network reconnaissance tool. It is very well documented and very feature rich. You can, if you don't fully understand all of the flags or any of the flags, you can do a man for manual page Nmap, the specific command that you want to look up, and then here you can read the man page about any of the commands. So for instance, we're going to be doing the SS flag. So if we can find it, let's have a look. Wait, we'll have to do a backspace. it's a different keyboard layout. Let me just quickly change that. And now we can look for, it'll be this. It's not going to allow me to look for the, there we go. So the specific flag, there we go. Nmap SS will be the stealth SYN scan. So that's how we will engage with the target. This is the default if you launch it with sudo, but just to make clear, there are other flag combinations that you could use depending on the environment that you're in that may or may not indicate more results for you. And then yeah, man page is really useful to be able to look at the documentation for any of the commands that you're going to be running today. This is the one we're going to choose, and then Control-Shift-V to paste it, and then let's run, see what it comes back with. In the Tartarus lab, the domain is already in the etc hosts file, so you don't need to worry about that. So here we can see sudo, so we're running it with root privileges. Nmap is the command. Then we're going to give it some arguments. So VVV, so be very, very verbose. A to do all the tests. SS specifies the SYN scan. PTAC is a shorthand for all 65,000 UDP and TCP ports, and then the target that you want to scan. In this case, it could be an IP address, or it can also be a domain name. It can't, however, be a URL. It has to be a domain name or an FQDN. So just bear that in mind. So you can see here the scan will continue. It's found 2 open ports, TCP port 80 and then TCP port 22. In your specific instance, if you're hosting the damn vulnerable web application somewhere else, it's probably not going to find TCP ports 22 because that is only in the lab used by Vagrant to manage the guest VM. So you'll only probably get port 80 as a response. However, Nmap is a very powerful, as I've said, piece of kit that you can then use to discover other open ports or maybe some firewall misconfigurations that would allow you to potentially exfiltrate data from a network. So the scan is going to continue. We're not going to worry about it too much at the moment. At the end, once the scan finishes, I'll run you through some of the key aspects that you're going to want to look at and understand. But to spoil it, it's only really going to find port 80 is open. Then we're going to go to that specific address. So the domain name, as we did previously, it'll show us the default Apache splash screen. So if we remove the subdirectory, it's just going to show us this. And it's like, oh, what is this? What are we going to do with this? We can't really do anything with this. That's by design. I'm going to demonstrate how we could find the subdirectory through enumerating the characters in a word list for those directories. So don't worry if that doesn't make too much sense at the moment. Then as well, I've got a bit of a side channel on what the SYN scan is actually doing under the hood, because I want to be very clear how this stuff is happening. If you're not interested, don't worry, you can skip to the timestamp. If, however, you are, this is how the scans are actually taking place. What would normally happen in a TCP three-way handshake, as it is referred to, when you start a connection to an open port on a remote destination, you will send a TCP packet with the SYN header set. So all of the other header flags are going to be 0. However, the SYN header flag is going to be 1. Then the remote server will receive that request and then you go, oh yes, this port is open. I am serving a web page at port 80 or port 443 or port whatever, or port 8080. Then it's going to go, okay, your SYN is acknowledged. So it's going to send a reply TCP packet with the headers SYN-ACK sent. Then you as the client are going to go, okay, great. I acknowledge that. And then we can open our connection and transfer data between our local system and the remote system. What Nmap is doing is it's sort of kneecapping the process and going, okay, actually, I'm just going to send a SYN. I'll get the SYNAC if the port is open, or I'll get a reset if the port is closed. We're not going to worry about that at the moment because there's some Windows, Linux that sort of operates. We're not going to worry about it at the moment. It's going to get a SYNAC to say, yes, this port is open. And then it's not going to say anything else. It's going to go okay. So that's why it's referred to in the documentation as a half open scan, because it's halfway opening up this connection. Some firewalls used to, this is kind of why it's referred to as a stealth scan. Some firewalls used to, in the past, previously, not log this type of activity and go, well, I mean, it's not really a proper TCP connection, so I'm just going to drop it. I'm not going to worry about it. Most firewalls today, and the OpenSense firewall that we're going to be logging from, that does log this activity. So we will be able to see, yes, these scans taking place in real time in the blue team section. Just to give you an idea as to what they would look like on the wire, this is what the first packet in this supposed connection would look like. You'd have the 32-bit length packet headers, half of that being your source port, the other half being the destination port. So it's an arbitrary source port to port 80, and then the sequence number, acknowledgement, some of that stuff. Then you're going to say, okay, here, this specific bit in the header is set to SYN. Then you'll get a response. So from source port 80 on the web server to your arbitrary source port, when you made the connection, it'll reply with a SYNAC to say, yes, you can continue this connection. So the first tool that we're going to use today is ffuf to be able to enumerate the subdirectory that we're actually going to be targeting, which is because in a real life engagement, you won't know what directories there are on the target. We're going to do an upgrade first to, which I've already done, and you're going to get a warning about the Kali Linux key not being up to date because they forgot their archive key. So they've had to issue a new one. There's a guide from it. There's a guide for it from Kali themselves on how to replace the key. Oh, yeah, here we go. There's the blog post. So new archive signing key. You run this command and you'll be good to go. Then you're going to want to install sec lists and pen code. So I'm just going to go through the installation process now. So it's going to be probably a bit of a jump till when everything's installed, because you can follow the blog. Okay, now that you have sec lists and pen code installed, pen code requires Go as a dependency, so you'd have through the blog installed Go as well, Golang. So now we can run the scan with this specific command. So we're going to use ffuf, then the URL, which is the target that we're going to be scanning today, then the fuzz keyword, so that's the parameter that we're going to be targeting. Then we want a match condition of the HTTP response code 200. We want to follow redirects, and then we want to specify what word list we're going to be using. We're going to be using a file handle for pen code and then a specific word list. So in this case, this is from seclists. So you'd also need seclists installed. It's the fuzzing all 1 to 4 letters A to Z. And then in pen code, we're going to be using the upper directive so that we make them all uppercase, because we know via a hunch that it is going to be an uppercase subdirectory. So then we can run this scan like that, Control-Shift-V, paste the command in, and then that will run the scan. And now it's going to be attempting so it's going to try AAAA, AAAB, AAAC, etc., all the way down until it finds a directory. So you can see here just how rapid this is happening. It is very quick. However, that comes at a cost. It is incredibly loud on the receiving end. This may even, in some instances, be misconstrued as a DDoS attempt. So you have to be very careful with this on your targets. But we can see here, there is a subdirectory that it's found, DVWA. So let's go to that subdirectory like we have before. Don't worry about it. Boom. And then we get the login. Happy days. And then, yeah, I mean, you could let that continue, or you could just hit Control C, and then that'll cancel the remainder of the scan. You can see here, this is what the result would look like. We go there, we get the login. Now we're going to install the Z attack proxy, formerly OWASP, now check marks. We will sudo apt install zap, because this is a fresh Kali instance, because I want it to be as basically as real as possible for you, so you can see, okay, I'm going through all of these steps like you would be going through all of these steps yourself. Cool. Now we have the Z attack proxy, the Z attack proxy installed. So we can just do a simple zap proxy. We don't want Nmap. Nmap's like the GUI Nmap. We don't need to worry about that at the moment. But this will open up the Z attack proxy for us. So this is just to illustrate another method of fuzzing the target. No, I don't have a session at the moment. Thank you very much. Start. You can see here, it's nice GUI. Happy days. Do I want to install some updates? No, I don't. Thank you very much. So we're going to do cool. And then this will do some GET requests and then some very basic scans. So of course, if you were to run this on the target, it's going to come back with like maybe like a medium, maybe a high here and there. It's not really going to be giving you everything that you're going to want to need, that you're going to need to effectively hack this target. So you can see here, it's doing some gets, getting a lot of 404s not founds. So we don't need to worry about that at the moment. Next. Once that is completed, you can see here the sort of, well, only 5 alerts. It's very much not, due to the way we've set this up, we've handicapped it so that it's not actually going to find any of the vulnerabilities at all, because it's not authenticated. So how could it find any of these vulnerabilities? So what we're going to want to do is send one of these requests to the fuzzer. So you can see here, okay, cool. We're going to send this attack fuzz. Now, a specific parameter that we want to be fuzzing is, because this is a normal HTTP formatted request, we want to say slash, we want to edit it first, and then we want to say slash fuzz, because it doesn't really matter what the keyword is. I mean, as long as, because this is very standardized, as long as there's the correct spacing between the URL and then the specific HTTP protocol that we're going to be using, which is 1.1, then it'll be okay. We want to save that, and then this we're going to add as a payload. We're going to add a regex payload. The regex we're going to be doing today is going to be A through Z uppercase. You can do A through Z lowercase as well. A through Z uppercase. Then we want to indicate how many occurrences of this there should be, which there should be 4 occurrences. And then that'll generate the payload for us. 1,000 is too little, so you'll do, it's 26 to the power of 4 would give you the total number of payloads you'll need, which is like 400 and something odd thousand. Did I write it down somewhere? I think I did. There we go. So then max payloads, generate preview, add, and then OK, and then start fuzzer. Now this will, you see here all the payloads, all of the payloads that it's going to be trying would be here. So at about halfway through you can cancel this, because it's going to be using a lot of system resources. So, but this is primarily to illustrate another tool that you can use within your arsenal if you're going to be doing some fuzzing. So we know where the directory is, so we can just cancel it here. And then close this. Well, in the blog, it'll show you how to search for the specific response that succeeded. Like I said here, that's the search that you'd want to do to get which response succeeded. So we're searching for the HTTP protocol and then the response code. So any of the 200 responses and then any of the 300 responses to 200 is if it's okay, then the web page is there, and then the 300 responses would be indicate a redirect. So 301 or like 307, that sort of stuff. Now that we have the target, it's only taken some time. Let us have a look. Close that session. In the browser, here we go. Here's the target. We can set our security. So there we go, in that tab. And now the cookie in this specific browser session is set to low. You can see that if you go into here, it'll see the PHP session ID, which is how the logins happen and how sessions are maintained. And then you can see here, security low. If I change that to high, submit, then it'll have a new cookie in my browser, security high. So for today's exercise, it'll be security low, which that's what we explained there. And then that's how you'll set the security for the remainder of the challenges on the low security. So we have 15 or so challenges: brute force, command injection, cross-site request forgery, file inclusion, file uploads, SQLI, blind SQLI, or SQL injection, sorry. Weak session IDs, the cross-site scripting, the document object model, the DOM based, there's reflected, there's stored, there's the content security policy bypass. There's some interesting things there that we can do. Then there's the JavaScript, so you're just basically reading some JavaScript and then trying to decode what it's trying to do. Then we have an authorization bypass, an open HTTP redirect, and some cryptography stuff to cap it all off. This isn't the full list, as you can see here in the damn vulnerable web application, because some of them, like the insecure capture, it requires external setup, which we're not going to go through. And then the API one, it's currently being worked on, so I'm not going to include that. Once that's finalized and once that's really good to go, we can include that in the guide. So that's all for the red team perspective. And now we shall do it on the blue team side and see how it looks.